The cold steel of the handcuffs clicked shut, beating mercilessly into the wrists of the most powerful man in Ackman. Officer Tergo Brendan smirked, utterly convinced he had just taken air to off the pristine streets of HIS patrol sector. He hadn't dared the idea that the man shivering in the back of HIS cruiser wasn't a criminal. He was HIS ultimate boss. In exactly a hour, Brandon's badge would be gone, which HIS career reduced to ashes. Here is the true story of the biggest mistake a bad cop ever made. The city of Ackman was breathing a collective sigh of relief under the cover of a crisp, rain-swept October evening. For a city of heavy million people, it had seen its fair share of turmoil, political corruption, and a deeply fractured relationship between law enforcement and the communities they were sworn to protect. Aaron Miles, 42 years old, had just been sworn in as the cheapest no less than a month prior. HIS campaign had been a grueling grassroots effort built on the promise of systemic reform, transparency, and bridging the massive divide between the wealthy suburbs and the neglected urban core. Aaron was an Ackman native. He had grown up on the cheapest impoverished south side, clawed HIS way through a law degree at Georgia Tech, and returned home not to cash out at a corporate firm, but to clean up HIS city. Despite HIS tailored suites and HIS face plastered on election billboards across the community, at HIS core, Aaron remained the grounded, observant kid from the block. On this particular Tuesday night, Aaron had finally managed to escape HIS security detail. It was a rare, unauthorized moment of freedom. He wanted to clear HIS head, but more importantly, he wanted to see HIS city through the eyes of an ordinary citizen without the flashing lights of a male motorcade or the psychopathic smiles of preaching captains. He left HIS city-issued SUV in the underground garage of City Hall and took HIS personal vehicle, a faded metallic blue 2012 Ford Taurus with a cricket, rear tail light. He swapped HIS bespoke wool suit for a worn-out gray university hoodie, dark denim jeans, and a faded baseball cap pulled over HIS forehead. Aaron drove out toward Cedar Ridge, one of Ackman's most affluent, predominantly white, neighborhoods. A constituent had emailed HIS office 3 times that week, complaining about a massive unrest sinkhole forming near a public elementary school. Aaron, being the instant leader he was, wanted to see the infrastructure failure with HIS on SB fire grilling the Department of Public Works in the morning. 2 blocks behind him, rolling silently through the misting rain, was car 44 of the Ackman Police Department. Behind the wheel sat Officer Tergo Brendan. Brendan was a 12-year veteran of the force, a man whose personal filet was as thick as a phone book, littered with excessive hours complaints, several grievances, and insubordination write-ups. He was a relic of a bygone era, an officer who treated HIS badge not as a show for the innocent, but as a crown of absolute authority. Beside him in the passenger seat sat Officer Everett Mitchell, a 23-year-old rookie fresh out of the academy, still idealistic but rapidly learning to keep HIS mouth shut around veteran officers. Brendan was in a foul mood. He had just been passed over for a promotion to sergeant for the 3rd time. He blamed the political correctness in the city, frequently complaining to anyone who would listen that the new administration was making it impossible for real cops to do their jobs. He had no idea what the new actually looked like outside of a stiff campaign poster. To Brendan, politicians were just names on memes. As car 44 rounded the corner onto Elmwood Drive, Brendan narrowed HIS eyes. Through the sweeping RHYTHM of HIS windshield wipers, he spotted the bit of blue Ford Taurus crawling slowly down the residential street. "Look at this," Brendan muttered, HIS voice dripping with immediate disdain. He reached out and tapped the dashboard. "What do we have here?" Officer Mitchell leaned forward, squinting through the rain. "Looks like an older fart. Probably lost. Lost in Cedar Ridge." Brendan scoffed, a dark smirk pulling at the corners of HIS mouth. "People who drive beat-up junkers like that don't get lost up here. They come up here to shoplift from cars or case horses. Run the plate." Mitchell typed the license plate into the mobile data terminal. The computer logged for a second before spitting back the registration. Because Ern had legally registered the car under a holding trust to maintain some privacy for his family prior to his mural run. The terminal simply read I am holdings Ackman. Registered to a holding company, Mitchell reported. Taxa clean. No warrants attached. Brendan scoffed, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the steering wheel. Holding company. Probably a drug front. And look, who's driving? The glare of the street lights momentarily illuminated the interior of the Taurus. Brendan saw the silhouette of a black man wearing a hoodie driving slowly, looking intently at the side of the road, and was actually looking for the reported single. But to Brendan, the narrative was already written in stone. Escaping the neighborhood, Brendan declared, reaching down to the center console. Let's light him up. On what grounds, Tom? Mitchell asked nervously, glancing at his training officer. He hasn't committed a moving violation. We don't have probable cause. Brendan shot the rookie a look of pure, unadulterated contempt. I have 12 years on the street? Git. I am the probable cause. Watch and learn. Brendan hid the switches. The patrol car's light bar erupted in a blinding strobe of red and blue, painting the wet pavement and the surrounding oak trees in harsh flashing colors. The siren chirped loudly, a sharp, aggressive wail demanding immediate submission. In the Taurus, Ern Miles saw the lights reflect in his rearview mirror. He checked his pedometer. He was doing 20 in a 25 zone. He had to set his turn signals. He was completely sober. A not formed in his stomach. Not out of fear, but out of a sudden, profound realization. This was it. This was the reality that thousands of his citizens faced every single day. Slowly, deliberately, Ern pulled the Taurus over to the curb, parking directly beneath a flickering amber streetlight. He turned off the engine, rolled down his window, and placed both of his hands firmly at the descent to positions on the steering wheel. He took a deep breath, deciding right then and there he was not mere Master Knight. He was just Ern, and he was going to see exactly how Officer Brendan treated the citizens of Ackman when nobody was watching. The rain drummed a steady holla RHYTHM against the roof of the Ford Taurus. Ern watched in the side mirror as the driver's side door of the cruiser swung open. A large, heavily built officer stepped out immediately, unhooking a heavy tactical flashlight from his duty belt. On the passenger side, a younger, thinner officer stepped out, looking hesitant, hanging back near the rear bumper of Aaron's car. Brendan approached the vehicle with a swagger that conveyed total ownership of the street. He didn't walk, he stalked. As he reached the driver's side window, he aimed the blinding beam of his flashlight directly into Aaron's eyes. An intentional and aggressive tactic meant to disorient and intimidate. Aaron squinted, turning his head slightly away from the blinding glare, but he kept his hands visibly locked on the steering wheel. License, registration, and proof of insurance, Brendan barked. There was no greeting, no good evening, the explanation for the stop, just an order delivered with the crack of a whip. Good evening, officer, Aaron said, with his voice calm, steady, and perfectly modulated. Could you tell me why I was pulled over? Brendan lowered the flashlight just an inch, illuminating Aaron's face, though the shadow of the baseball cap still obscured his features. Brendan sneered. I asked the questions, body. Not you. I said, license and registration. Now I am happy to provide MY documents, Aaron replied, maintaining a respectful but firm tone. But as a citizen, I have the right to know the reason for this traffic stop. Was I speeding? Brendan leaned closer to the window, the smell of cheap coffee and spearmint gum wafting into the car. You're driving past me under the limit. You're impeding traffic. You also crossed to the yellow line back at the intersection. It was a blatant lie. Aaron had driven flawlessly, and there hadn't been another car on the road to impede. I see, Aaron said softly. He knew chilling the lie right now would only fool the officer's accretion. MY Wowley is in MY back, right pocket. MY registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for the arm now. Is that alright with you? Officer. Aaron paused, waiting for a name. Brandon. The cop snapped. And make it slow. I see any sudden movements and you're going to have a serious problem. Understood, Officer Brandon. Aaron said, moving with deliberate, exaggerated slowness. Aaron took Ichaya's right hand off the wheel. He reached behind him, slipping Ichaya's fingers into Ichaya's back pocket to retrieve Ichaya's letter uaule. As he did, Brandon's hand instinctively dropped to the grip of Ichaya's service weapon. He unclipped the retention strap with an audible snapper. Rookie Officer Mitchell, standing near the trunk, took a nervous step forward. Tom is just getting Ichaya's uaule. Shoot up, Mitchell. We got this. Brandon growled without taking Ichaya's ace off arm. Aaron pulled the uaule out and extracted Ichaya's driver's license. He handed it through the window. Brandon snatched it out of Ichaya's hand, bringing it up to the flashlight. He read the name Aaron Miles. It didn't click. To an arrogant man like Brandon, the mayor was a political entity, a ghost in City Hall, not a man sitting in a rusty fort in a hoodie. All right, Aaron, Brandon said, using the mayor's first name in a deliberate show of disrespect. What are you doing in this neighborhood? I'm out for a drive? Aaron answered simply. A drive. Brandon repeated, mocking the phrase. Nobody comes to see the rich for a drive at 11 часов at night, in the pouring rain. Where do you live? Am I this on the license, officer? Brandon looked at the plastic card again. Mitty listed Aaron's previous address on the south side. He hadn't yet updated it to Ichaya's new residence since moving closer to the city center for the meal term. The south side? Brandon sneered. That's a long way from home, Aaron. You checking out the houses up here? Looking for an open garage door. Aaron's jaw tightened. The blatant racial profiling was no longer a theoretical concept discussed in boardrooms. Mitty was staring him in the face, dripping with malice. I am looking at the rats, Officer Brandon. Here is a sin-color problem in this district. I wanted to see it for myself. Brandon let out a harsh barking cry. A sin-color problem? Right. You a city engineer now. You got a hard hat in the trunk. I work for the city. Yes? Aaron said smoothly. Yeah? I bet you do. Probably sweeping flowers at the municipal building, Brandon retorted. He slapped the roof of the Taurus heart with a chest-pump. The sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet neighborhood. Step out of the vehicle. Aaron didn't move immediately. Officer, I have provided my identification. I have answered your questions. Am I being detained or am I free to go? The question. A standard legal inquiry? I infuriated Brandon. In Ichaya's mind, citizens didn't have rights. They had whatever permissions he deigned to grant to Aaron. The fact that this man in a hoodie was speaking to him with articulate legal precision made Brandon's blood boil. I said step out of the damn car. Brandon shouted, pulling Ichaya's flashlight back as if preparing to smash the window. You are ordered out of the vehicle under Pennsylvania versus Mims. Now get out before I drag you out through the glass. Aaron knew the case law. He knew the Supreme Court had ruled that officers could order drivers out of their vehicles during a lawful traffic stop. But he also knew the stop itself was unlawful. Still, Aaron was a pragmatist. He had a wife and a 12-year-old daughter. He isn't going to get himself shot on a dark street over pride. He had all the evidence he needed. I am stepping out, Aaron said. He pulled the door handle and slowly pushed the heavy metal door open. As soon as Aaron's sneakers touched the wet pavement, Brandon was on him. Brandon grabbed Aaron by the shoulder of Ichaya's hoodie and violently spun him round, slamming him face first against the side of the Taurus. The impact knocked the breath out of Aaron's lungs, which Ichaya's cheek pressing against the cold, wet metal of the car's roof. Spread your legs, Brandon barked, kicking Aaron's right ankle outward so violently that Aaron nearly lost Ichaya's balance. There isn't need for this level of physical force, Officer Brandon, Aaron said. Ichaya's voice trained but remarkably composed. I am complying, with your orders. Shoot you moord, Brandon yelled, pressing Ichaya's firm heart into the back of Aaron's neck. He began aggressively patting Aaron down, Ichaya's hands roughly checking the pockets of the jeans, the waistline moving visera in vashive speed. Officer Mitchell jogged up to the side of the car, Ichaya's eyes wide with panic. Tom Jesus, he isn't doing anything. Man, you don't need to. I told you to shoot, you moord. Mitchell, go clear the vehicle, Brandon ordered. Mitchell hesitated, looking at Aaron's stegwijs, pressed against the glass, and turned back at Ichaya's commanding officer. Reluctantly, the young rookie shined Ichaya's light into the empty Taurus, finding nothing but some old coffee cups and a stack of city planning documents on the passenger seat. Is clean, Tom? There is nothing in the car, Mitchell pleaded. Let's just run Ichaya's license and cut him loose. This is a bad stop. I decide what a bad stop is. Brandon spat. He leaned in close to Aaron's ear. You think you're smart? Fair. Talking back to me? Asking if you're already trained. You people come up to the side of town and think you can do whatever you want. Not on my watch. Aaron turned to Ichaya's head slightly, looking as with Brandon. The anger in the mayor's chest was a roaring fire. But Ichaya's mind was an ocean of ice. He was taking a mental photograph of every word, every movement, every violation of department policy. You people? Aaron repeated softly. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that, officer? Brandon's face flushed with rage. That's it. Put your hands behind your back. You're going in. On what charge? Aaron asked, not resisting as Brandon yanked Ichaya's left arm behind Ichaya's back. Failure to comply. Resisting arrest as a respiration of prowling. Take your pig, body. You figure it out when we get to the precinct. The cold steel of the handcuffs clicked, beating mercilessly into the wrists of Aaron Miles. Brandon tightened their man extra notch, ensuring the metal dug painfully into Aaron's skin. It was a potty, vindictive tactic meant to cause physical pain without leaving major bruising. You are making a profound mistake, Officer Brandon, Aaron said quietly. One that you will not be able to undo. Brandon left. A harsh, ugly sound. Savvy IT for the public defender, Pelter. Brandon grabbed Aaron by the collar of Ichaya's hoodie and shoved him toward the rear of the patrol cruiser. Aaron stumbled, but caught Ichaya's balance, refusing to let the officer see him fall. He ducked Ichaya's head and slid into the cramped hard plastic back seat of the police car. There, inside smelled of stale sweat, cheap institutional cleaner, and the lingering despair of 8 hours and prior rests. The heavy door slammed shut, sealing Aaron inside the cage. Brandon climbed into the driver's seat, panting slightly from the adrenaline of the physical exertion. He looked at Aaron through the thick plexiglass partition in the rear-view mirror. Comfortable back there, Aaron. Brandon mocked. Mitchell slid into the passenger seat, Ichaya's face pale. He looked sick to Ichaya's stomach. He didn't look back at Aaron. Instead, he stared straight ahead at the rain pounding against the windshield. You didn't read me my Miranda rights, Aaron stated from the darkness of the back seat. I don't have to, unless I'm interrogating you, Brandon fired back, putting the cruiser into drive. Looks like you've been through the system before, knowing all the buzzwords. Don't worry, I give you plenty of time to talk at the station. Aaron leaned back against the hard plastic, the cuffs digging painfully into Ichaya's spine. I would like to make a phone call. You get a phone call when you're booked in the system. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Brandon kid Ichaya's radio. Dispatcher, car 44. Show me en route to the forward precinct with one adult male in custody. Copy 44. Dispatcher Brenda's tired voice crackled over the radio. Need 804 the vehicle. Brandon glanced in Ichaya's rear view mirror at the Taurus. Negative, dispatcher. Leave IT on the curb. City impound can grab IT Termara. The cruiser accelerated away from Cedar Ridge. The flashing lights casting wry shadows across the wet trees. Aaron Miles sat in the dark, feeling the vibrations of the road beneath him. He wasn't thinking about the pain in his wrists or the humiliation of being pressed against the hood of a car. He was thinking about the forward preaching. He knew the car remainder of the forward preaching well. Captain Ulrich Peterson was an old-school cub, but he was a fair man. Had met with Alaric extensively during the transition period. Also knew the cheetah's police chief, Robert Hayes, was currently asleep in his bed across town. Made a promise to himself in the back of that cruiser. He was going to let Brendan carry this chariot all the way to the end. He was going to let Brendan walk him into the bullpen, parade him past the desk sergeant, and put him in a holding cell. He was going to let the officer dig his on grave so deep that no agrarian law, no fraternal order, and no corrupt arbitration board could ever pull him out. The cruiser turned off the highway and pulled into the gritty industrial zone of the east side. Up ahead, the glowing blue lights of the forward preaching station house caught through the fog. The building was a brutalist concrete structure, intimidating and uninviting. Brendan steered the cruiser down the ramp and into the secure underground heliport. The heavy steel garage doors rolled down behind TRM with a loud final crash, locking TRM in. Brendan threw the car in park and turned off the engine. He unbuckled his seatbelt and turned to look through the plexiglass at Aaron. End of the line? Aaron. Brendan sneered, grabbing his clipboard. Welcome to my house. Aaron looked back at him, with his eyes calm, dark, and utterly unbothered. Lead the way, officer, Aaron replied. Brendan opened the rear door, grabbed Aaron by the arm, and yanked him out into the harsh fluorescent light of the garage. Mitchell followed silently behind Aaron, with his head down. As they walked toward the heavy steel doors leading to the booking area, Aaron prepared himself for the performance of a lifetime. The stage was set, and the curtain was about to rise on Officer Tergo Brandon's final act as a police officer. The heavy steel doors of the forward preaching swung open, and the overwhelming scent of industrial bleach, stale coffee, and unwashed bodies hit Aaron miles like a physical wall. The bullpen was a chaotic theater of municipal despair. Telephones rang incessantly, their shrill tones cutting through the cacophony of shouting suspects, clicking keyboards, and the static hiss of police radios. Under the harsh flickering fluorescent lights, the peeling seafoam green paint of the walls looked sickly, reflecting decades of wear and tear. Officer Tergo Brendan gripped Aaron's bicep tightly, marching him past a line of battered metal discs where exhausted detectives typed up reports with 2 fingers. Aaron's hands were still locked tightly behind his back, the metal cuffs digging a red raw ring into his skin, but his posture remained perfectly straight. He walked with a quiet, deliberate dignity that seemed entirely out of place in the grim surroundings. Officer Everett Mitchell trailed a few paces behind, with his darting around the room. The young rookie felt a knot tightening in his stomach that he couldn't quite explain. Most suspects brought in on resisting arrest or prowling charges were belligerent, loud, or visibly terrified. The man in the grey hoodie was none of those things. He was observing the room with the analytical eye of a building inspector, taking in the locations of the security cameras, the layout of the discs, and the faces of the personnel. Brendan shoved Aaron toward the high-elevated counter of the booking desk. Sitting behind the reinforced glass was Desk Sergeant Gregory Gabriel, a 30-year veteran with a graying mustache, heavy bags under his eyes, and the exhausted demeanor of a man who had seen every flavor of human stupidity. Got a live one for you, Greg. Brendan announced loudly, slapping his clipboard down on the counter. He wanted the rest of the room to hear him. It was a performance. Sergeant Gabriel didn't look up from his computer monitor right away. He finished typing a sentence, hit enter with a heavy sigh, and finally peered down through the scratched plexiglass at Aaron. At the charge, Brendan. Gabriel asked, with his voice a grelly monotony. Take you a peek. Brendan smirked, leaning against the counter. Failure to comply with a lawful order, resisting arrest, a suspicion of prowling in Cedar Ridge, guy was creeping around Elmwood Drive in a beat-up Ford, looking at horses, refused to step out of his vehicle when ordered. Gabriel reached out a thick, calloused hand. ID Brunden fischt Aarons drivers license out of ICS uniform poget and taust IT inta the metal tray beneath the glass. Gibru picked IT up, adjusting ICS reading glasses. Miles. Gibrul Ritterlud. The name barely registering in ICS fatigued brain. To a desk sergeant working the graveyard shift, names were just data points to be fed into the machine. Is on the south side. You were a long way from home, a mere miles. I was driving on public roads. Sergeant. Replied. Which is voice command carrying a natural on first authority. I complied with every requirement given to me. I provided MOI identification. I was physically assaulted, pulled from a MOI vehicle, and arrested without being read MOI rights or told what crime I was suspected of committing. Gabriel paused. He looked closely at Aaron for the first time. Clear strode suspects overly cursed, cried, or slurred their words. They didn't use persistent and articulate civil rights violations with the clinical precision of a prosecuting attorney. Brendan let out a loud McKinley. Listen to this guy. Greetings is a constitutional scholar because he watched an episode of Law and Order. He was combative. Mitchell was there. Tell him? Did. Mitchell stepped up to the desk, swallowing hard. Gabriel shifted HIS gaze to the rookie. That right? Mitchell. He fought you. Mitchell looked at Aaron's dark eyes, and then at Brandon's glaring, expectant face. He didn't get physical, Sergeant. Mitchell stammered, trying to walk a tightrope between truth and loyalty. He just asked a lot of questions, kept asking if he was being detained. Brendan shot Mitchell a look of pure venom. Clear strode he refused a direct order to hit the vehicle underarms. That's resisting. Book him. Greg, Gabriel sighed, rubbing HIS temples. He did have the energy for a pissing contest between a hot-headed patrolman and an articulate suspect. Empty your pockets, Miles. Take off the hoodie, the shoelaces, and the belt. Brendan unlocked the handcuffs, roughly yanking Aaron's arms forward. Aaron didn't wrap HIS chafed wrists. He silently removed the HIS faded baseball cap, clutching IT in the plastic property bin on the counter. He unzipped the worn university hoodie, revealing a plain, neatly ironed white shirt underneath. He removed the HIS belt and HIS shoelaces, which HIS movements precise and unhurried. Every second Aaron was calculating. He looked up at the black dome of the security camera mounted directly above the booking desk. Good. Hit out. Audio and video. Perfect. Put him in cell 3. Gabriel ordered, sliding the property bin behind the desk. You get him fingerprinted when the backlog clears. Brendan grabbed the Aaron by the shoulder again, steering him away from the desk and toward the holding cells lining the back wall of the precinct. Cell 3 was a 10x10 cage of textile bars and reinforced concrete. Inside, a man in a torn jacket was sleeping on the floor, snoring loudly, while another man pissed frantically, muttering to himself. The smell of urine and vomiting was sharp enough to make the eyes water. Brendan slid the heavy barred door open with a loud metallic clatter. In you go, Your Honor. Brendan mocked, using the title sarcastically, entirely unaware of the cosmic irony of each HIS words. He shoved Aaron into the cell. Get comfortable. You were going to be here a while too. Aaron turned around as the heavy door slammed shut, the deadbolt engaging with a heavy toy. He walked over to the cold steel bench, bolted to the cinder block wall, and sat down. He didn't look at the other inmates. He just looked through the bars, straight at Tergo Brendan. I am legally entitled to a phone call, Officer, Aaron said, which HIS voice is carrying through the bars. Yeah, when I get round to it. Brendan sneered, turning HIS back and walking through to a nearby desk to start HIS paperwork. Aaron sat in the cage for 20 agonizing minutes. He set the time to mentally draft the executive orders he was going to sign the following morning. He was going to overhaul the entire patrol division. He was going to mandate body cameras for every single officer, funding ITBY getting the department's militarized vehicle budget, Brendan had just given the mayor the exact ammunition he needed to fire the police agent into submission. Finally, Sergeant Gabriel called out from the desk. Brendan, let Miles make HAS call. State law. I don't want the echo breathing down my neck because you're dragging your feet. Brendan rolled to HISAs, dropping HIS pen. Clear throat he walked over to cell 3, unlocked IT, and gestured toward a buttered metal chassis telephone bolted clear throat to the wall at the end of the hallway. 3 minutes, Miles, Brendan warned. And don't bother calling a lawyer. No one is coming out in this rain for a prowl. Aaron stepped out of the cell and walked to the phone. Clear throat he didn't need to look up a number. He had the specific number memorized. IT was a direct encrypted cell phone line meant only for extreme municipal emergencies. He picked up the heavy receiver, waited for the dial tone, and punched in the 10 digits. Across Aaron in a sprawling gated property overlooking the Akmont River, the shrill ring of a cell phone shattered the silence of a dark master bedroom. Chief of Police Robert Hayes groaned, rolling over in HIS King's bed. He was a heavily built man in HIS late 50s, HIS hair silver, HIS was lined from 30 years of city politics and police work. He reached blindly for the nightstand, HIS fingers winding the vibrating device. He squinted at the screen. The caller ID didn't show a name, just a secure municipal code. Hayes sat bolt upright. Only 3 people in the city had that number, and a call at midnight meant a catastrophe, a terror threat, a mass casualty event, or a riot. He swiped the screen and brought the phone to HIS ear. Hayes. Bob? It's Sam. The clear-throat voice on the other end said calmly. Hayes blinked, trying to clear the sleep from HIS brain. Mayor. Sir? Is everything all right? Where are you a security detail? In the grimy hallway of the 4th precinct. Aaron kept HIS voice low. HIS don't conversational, but list with an IC edge that sent a shiver down the chief's spine. My detail is at my residence. I am currently standing at a wall phone in the booking area of the 4th precinct, Bob. I am wearing socks without choice, and my wrists are bleeding from being improperly handcuffed. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the phone line. In HIS bedroom, Chief Hayes swung HIS legs out of bed, HIS bare feet hitting the hardwood floor. All the blood instantly drained from HIS face. Sir, what? Hayes breathed, praying he hit misheard. You were at the 4th visiting. No, Bob. I am in custody, Aaron said clearly. I took my personal vehicle out for a drive to inspect a reported infrastructure failure in Cedar Ridge. I was pulled over by car 44. The officer's name is Brendan. He pulled me over without probable cause, ordered me out of the car, physically slammed me against the roof of my vehicle, handcuffed me, and arrested me on fabricated charges of resisting arrest and a suspicion of prowling. Hayes felt the room spine. The mayor, a newly elected, wildly popular, reformed black mayor who had just won an election on a platform of police accountability, had been violently arrested on a bogus profile stop by one of HIS on patrolman. IT wasn't just a mistake. IT was a career-ending, city-burning, national news-making catastrophe. Sir, Mayor, I have no words. He stammered, HIS heart hammering against HIS ribs like a trapped bird. He was already walking toward HIS closet, pulling a uniform shirt off a hanger. Are you injured? Did he strike you? Strikes, just unnecessary ranis, and an illegal detainment. Aaron replied, HIS is striking Brendan, who was sitting at the desk 52, laughing with another officer and pointing at Aaron. I want you to listen to me very carefully, Bob. Yes, sir. Anything. Do not call the desk. Do not alert the officers on the floor. I want this to play out naturally until you arrive. You are going to come down here personally and you are going to bring Captain Pissern with you. I'm on my way, Mayor. 15 minutes. I am so profoundly sorry. Save the apologies for tomorrow. Bob, just get here. Aaron hung up the phone. The loud clack of the plastic receiver hitting the metal cradle caught in the hallway. "To mess up? Ern." Brendan clears throat shouted from HAS desk. "Did you wake up, mommy?" Ern turned round. He looked at Brendan. "Aisla." Dark smile creeping onto HAS face. It wasn't a smile of humor. It was the smile of a predator watching a trap spring shoot. "Nah, Officer Brendan," Ern said softly as he walked back toward HAS holding cell. "I woke up, did it?" Brendan frowned. Unsettled for a fraction of a second by the sheer confidence radiating from the man in the dirty socks, but HAS Evo quickly suppressed the feeling. He shoved Ern back into cell 3 and locked the door. Meanwhile, Trimirui, Chief Face was flying down the wet, empty streets of Augment in HAS unmarked black SUV, the red and blue grill lights flashing silently. HAS phone was pressed to HAS ear, ringing the private line of Captain Alaric Peterson, the commanding officer of the forward precinct. Peterson, a strict, no-nonsense commander, was actually asleep in HAS private office on the second floor of the precinct. He often pulled double shifts, sleeping on a leather couch in HAS office. The phone vibrated violently against the glass coffee table, waking Peterson. He rubbed HAS eyes unanswered. "Peterson, all Ulrich, it's haste." The chief's voice barked through the speaker, sounding breathless and panicked. "Are you at the house?" "Yeah, Chief. I'm upstairs in MY office." "What's going on? You sound out of breath." All Ulrich listened to me very carefully. "Get off that couch. Get your uniform on and get down to the bullpen immediately." "What's happened?" Peterson asked, suddenly alert, standing up and reaching for HAS duty belt. "One of your patrolmen, Brendan. Car 44. He just brought in a suspect from Cedar Ridge." Brendan. Peterson grew another. He hated Brendan. The man was a walking liability. What did he do this time? Shoot somebody's dog. Worse? All Ulrich. "A god? It's so much worse," he said. HAS voice actually trembling. "Go down to the desk, look at the booking log. Do not make a scene. Just secure the prisoner and wait for me. I am pulling into your garage in 3 minutes." The line went dead. Peterson stared at HAS phone for a second. He had known Robert Hayes for 20 years. He had never ever heard the man sound terrified. Peterson threw on HAS uniform jacket, didn't bother with a tie, and practically sprinted out of HAS office. He took the metal stairs down to the main floor 2 at a time, HAS heavy boots echoing loudly in the stairwell. He burst through the security doors and into the bullpen. The room went instantly quiet. Desk Sergeant Gabriel sat up perfectly straight. Detective stopped typing. Brendan, who was still casually filling out HAS arrest report, dropped HAS pen and stood up at attention. The captain never came down to the bullpen at 1 час ночи unless someone was dead. Peterson ignored all of term. He walked directly to the elevated booking desk. He was a large man, broad-shouldered, with a stern, heavily lined face that commanded instant respect. "Gabriel," Peterson snapped, pointing a thick finger at the desk sergeant. "Give me the booking log right now." Gabriel, looking confused and slightly alarmed, quickly hit print on HAS input. Open with the force of annihilation. Chief of Police Robert Hayes stormed into the bullpen. The entire room froze. For the Chief of Police to appear in a precinct bullpen at 1 час 15 минут ночи, fully in uniform with our gold stars gleaming on HAS collar, was an event equivalent to a comet striking the building. "Attention on deck," Sergeant Gabriel Belade, instinctively leaping to HAS feet. Every officer in the room stood up, squaring their shoulders. Hayes didn't look at any of them. HAS face was a mask of unadulterated fury and sheer panic. He marched across the linoleum floor, HAS heavy boots pounding a thriving RHYTHM, heading straight for the holding cells. Brendan watched the chief walk past him. The seat of the word in HAS chest suddenly bloomed into a suffocating icy vine of terror. HAS breath caught in HAS throat. He looked at the holding cell. He looked at the chief. He looked at the name on HIS arrest report. Miles arm. Clear-strode Brendan Toad. The blood rushing in HIS ears. No. It's a coincidence. It's a Cameron name. It's a guy in a hoodie. It's a nobody. He's reached cell 3. He saw Captain Peterson standing at attention. He looked inside and saw Arurin sitting on the bench. The chief of police, a man who commanded 3,000 armed officers, took off HIS uniform cap and large HIS hat. "I'm Mayor," Chief Hay said, which HIS was carrying clearly down the hallway and directly into the dead, silent bullpen. "I have no words to excuse this thought. I am entirely at your disposal, sir." In the bullpen, the words hit like a physical shock wave. Armor Desk Sergeant Gabriel slowly lowered himself back into HIS chair, which HIS as we kid, staring at the property bin containing the faded baseball cap and the hoodie. Uverend Mitchell fell to HIS knees actually buckle. He grabbed at the edge of the desk to keep from collapsing. With HIS mind flashing back to the moment Brendan slammed the man against the roof of the Taurus. He had stood there. He had watched it happen. He was an accessory to the false arrest of the mayor and Tego Brendan. Brendan stopped breathing. The pen he was holding slipped from HIS fingers, clattering loudly against the linoleum floor. HIS heart began to hammer against HIS ribs like a trapped animal. The arrogant sneer melted off HIS face, replaced by a pally, slackative pression of absolute ruinous horror. The realization crashed down on him with the weight of a falling building. The man he had racially profiled. The man he had mocked. The man he had illegally detained, physically assaulted, and shoved into a cage. It was Aaron Miles, the mayor of Oakland. Slowly, deliberately, Aaron stood up from the concrete bench. He walked out of the cell, which HIS sucked feet padding so swiftly against the floor. He ignored Peterson. He ignored Hayes. He walked straight down the hallway, entering the bullpen. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. 30 police officers stood frozen in place, their eyes locked on the man in the white shirt and grey sweatpants. Aaron stopped in the center of the room. He looked directly at Tergo Brendan. Brendan was visibly trembling. The impassing aggressive predator who had stalked the streets of Cedar Ridge was gone. In which HIS place stood a broken, terrified bully facing a firing squad. "Officer Brendan," Aaron said, which HIS was echoing off the peeling green walls. It wasn't a shout. It was a measured, surgical streak. "You asked me what it do for the city. I believe you suggested I sweep the floors at the municipal building." Brendan opined which HIS murmured, but no sound came out. Which HIS vocal cords were paralyzed by fear. Aaron took a step closer. "I told you that you were making a profound mistake. But what you don't know, officer, is that our meeting tonight was not entirely a coincidence." A murmur rippled through the bullpen. Chief Hayes and Captain Patterson stepped up behind the mayor, flanking him like Secret Service agents. "For the past 3 weeks," Aaron continued, which HIS asperging through Brendan, "I have been privately auditing the internal affairs files of the Oakland Police Department. I was looking for the liabilities, the battles that you identified so desperately to protect. Your name, Officer Brendan, was at the very top of MOI list. 12 excessive fires complaints, 3 civil rights lawsuits settled out of court with taxpayer money, countless instances of insubordination. Brendan saw a lot, a bit of sweat, tracing down which HIS stamp. "Sir, Mayor, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know who I was." Aaron's voice cricket like a web, the sudden rise in volume making Brendan flinch. "That is the entire point. You didn't know I was the mayor. You just saw a black man in a hoodie driving through a wealthy neighborhood, and you assumed you were untouchable. You assumed I was nobody, and therefore I had no rights. I went to Cedar Ridge tonight because I knew car 44 was assigned to that sector. I wanted to see if the monster in the vials was real." Aaron pointed a finger directly at Brandon's chest. "You exceeded MOI worst yichpestetians. You lied about MOI driving. You escalated the situation without cause. You physically assaulted a compliant citizen. You violated MOI Fourth Amendment rights. And you did it with a smile on your face. Aaron turned which is had slightly to look at the chief of police. Chief Hayes? Captain Peterson. Yes, I'm Aaron Mayer. They answered simultaneously. This man, Aaron said, refusing to take HIS out Brendan, is a disgrace to the badge he wears. He is a danger to the public. And he is the exact reason why the citizens of the city do not trust the police. I want him stripped of HIS police powers immediately. I want HIS badge, HIS weapon, and HIS resignation on MOI disk by sunrise. If I do not have IT, Chief, I will fire you. I will fire the captain, and I will dismantle this preaching brick by brick. Hayes didn't hesitate for a fraction of a second. Captain Peterson, relieve Officer Brendan of HIS duty belt and HIS badge. Now Peterson stepped forward, HIS face a mask of pure righteous anger. He had always hated Brendan, but the onion had always protected him. Not tonight. Tonight, the onion soul saved him. Hands away from your waist, Brendan, Peterson ordered sharply. Trembling, Karen politely humiliated in front of HIS entire shift. Brendan slowly unclipped HIS radio. He handed it to the captain. Then he unbuckled HIS heavy leather duty belt, the holster containing HIS service weapon heavy in HIS hands. He handed it over. Finally, with shaking fingers, he unpinned the silver shield from HIS chest. In less than a minute, Tergo Brendan went from the apex predator of the streets to an unemployed, disgraced civilian facing federal civil rights charges. Aaron watched the badge drop into the captain's hand. He felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction that one piece of the had been excised. Then Aaron turned HIS gaze to the young rookie, Everett Mitchell. Mitchell stiffened, HIS white with fear, waiting for the eye to fall on HIS on neck. Officer Mitchell? Aaron said quietly. Yes, I'm Mayor. You knew the stop was bad. You knew there was no probable cause. You told him to let me go. Mitchell nodded slowly, surprised that the mayor had remembered HIS weak temperatures at intervention. But you stood by. Aaron said, HIS tons of turning into a harsh, undeniable lesson. When he threw me against the car, you stood by. When he locked me in the cruiser, you stood by. Silence in the face of corruption is complicity. Son, clear throat you let an older officer bully you into violating your oath. I am not taking your badge tonight. But I want you to remember this feeling. I want you to remember the shame you feel right now for the rest of your career. Because if you ever stand by and watch another citizen be abused, I will end your career just as quickly as I ended HIS. Do we understand each other? Yes, sir, Mitchell whispered, a tear of sheer relief and profound guilt slipping down HIS cheek. I understand. I swear to you, sir. Aaron nodded. He turned back to the desk sergeant. Sergeant Gabriel, MOI property, please. Gabriel practically tripped over himself, grabbing the plastic bin, sliding it over the counter. Aaron calmly put HIS belt back on, laced up HIS shoes, and slipped the hoodie back over HIS head. I'm Mayor. MOI car is outside. Chief Hayes said softly. Please allow me to drive you home to. Now, clear throat Bob, Aaron replied, picking up HIS baseball cap. I'll be calling my wife to come get me, but you and I are going to have a very long meeting at City Hall tomorrow at 800 and bring the department budget. You're buying body cameras for every officer in the city, and you're paying for IT out of the patrol division's our team fund. Aaron Miles put HIS faded baseball cap back on HIS head, pulling Itila. He walked out of the forward preaching bullpen, leaving behind a shattered, disgraced cap, a terrified department, and a city that was about to wake up to a revolution. The predator had caught HIS prey, only to realize he had swallowed a grenade, and Aaron Miles had just pulled the bin. What a satisfying dose of instant karma. Mayor Aaron Miles proved that true leadership isn't just about passing laws. It's about walking in the shoes of the people you serve and facing the broken systems head on. Officer Brendan thought he was untouchable. But his arrogance ended up costing him everything in the span of a single hour. If you loved this intense real life story of justice read called, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more incredible true crime inspired stories where the bad guys get exactly what they deserve.